What is up, my fellow YouTubers? Jack Fables here, and today I'm going to be talking about how Disney Plus is going to change the game for fans and streaming services everywhere. How it is both positive, how is it a positive example of capitalism at its finest. Now, for starters, give you a little rundown about Disney Plus. Disney Plus is going to be an online streaming service for Disney-owned IP, intellectual properties. What does that mean? That means Marvel, Star Wars, 20th Century Fox, as well as their own original content from Disney Animated and Pixar Studios will be streaming on their own service as well as on Hulu, since Disney now owns 60%, over 60% of Hulu stocks. Now, what else does that mean? That mean, according to news reports as well as from Disney itself, 500 movies will be available, as well as 7,000 episodes of their shows, which includes over 600 episodes of The Simpsons, which will be featured on Disney Plus, as well as original content similar to what Netflix has done. Now, also another plus side is that they're also incorporating. They're going to have all the Marvel movies, as well as the new live action remakes, including the Aladdin, Dumbo, Maleficent 2 movies. Now, for fans who don't enjoy the, family oriented, younger audience like Disney, Frozen, all that, the 20th Century properties will still, 20th Century Fox properties will still be available on Hulu. They are going to move R-rated properties as well as aimed at older audiences onto Hulu. So therefore, Disney is not going to stop production of, say, Deadpool. That you're still going to be able to watch it on Hulu, as well as other more mature content like on Fox Network, such as Family Guy, uh, Bob's Burgers, stuff like that. And what does this mean for fans? It means you get to be able to still be able to watch great content as well as new content on this service. Now, now people are asking me, why is this an example of capitalism? Well, they saw a need, they fulfilled a need, and they're going to go with it. Now, what does it mean for the future? It also means that there are going to be some issues, especially with things called monopolies. What is a monopoly? It's basically what happens when you control the corner market on any particular product. Like, say, for example, I created tires, and I own the patent. I'm the only one who can make tires, and nobody else can make tires, and because I'm the only one who can do it, that means I can be able to charge whatever I want. Now, it's a little bit more complicated when it comes to intellectual property. You see, with intellectual property, it basically means it's inventions that are created entirely with thought. You see this with things such with Harry Potter, with Disney, with Marvel. All those are technically considered intellectual properties. They're not inventions, they're not resources. So it's a little bit more complicated when it comes to monopolies on those issues. Now, this is not the first time that intellectual property and monopolies has come into conflict. In fact, there was a famous case back in the 40s called United States versus Paramount Pictures. You see, at that time, movie studios would actually used to do something similar to streaming service. It's called movie theaters. Studios like Warner Brothers, Paramount, even Disney had their own exclusive movie theaters that they would only have their movies. Their movies would be only streamed there or would be viewed there. You would have to go to these movie theaters to view them. Now, it's understandable why they did this. I mean, it gets a little expensive to go to a movie theater since they do charge out the ass for popcorn. They still do. And for drinks and refreshments. So it's, there's no only way. This was before, of course, this was back in the 1940s. So this was before DVDs, this was before the internet. So it's understandable that the technology wasn't available for people to be able to view this content. But now that the technology is caught up, we have streaming services. We have Netflix, Hulu, we have DC Universe, we have HBO Go, we have Stars, and all these channels are basically starting their own streaming service. And it's creating an issue that people are saying, look, it's creating monopolies, exclusive content. And it's understandable why people are a little concerned, but this is why I don't believe this is a true monopoly. You see, a monopoly basically says that you can't go out and make content. And that's not true. This is the entertainment industry. This is basically stuff to where if you have an idea and you get funding for it, you can basically make your own streaming service and stream that on there. Now, it's understandable where this might be a little bit complicated considering that they do have to compete with bigger studios like Warner Brothers, Disney, even Netflix is kind of a big competition since they are creating interesting shows. However, this does spell doom even for Netflix because of the fact that Disney did pull a lot of their intellectual property off of their streaming service, that it created a big dent in their lineup. Because a lot of people they just watch Netflix just so they can watch their newer Disney movies, as well as some of the older stuff that's not on there. Now, and as well as watch the Marvel Netflix shows. And since those were canceled, and since we're still having to wait a few more years due to a contract dispute or a contract loophole, that they can't put on Daredevil, Luke Cage, the rest of the people on there for a few more years on Disney Plus. So we're gonna have to wait until those guys show up. But the good news is that new shows are coming out within those intellectual properties. You have shows like Howard the Duck, you have the Guardians of the Galaxy, the animated, and there's actually rumors that the Ravengers are going to have their own show, and then there's also rumors that Black Panther Wakanda, a story that takes place in Wakanda, is going to have it be on Disney Plus, and it's all this stuff, and even the older and stuff that's aimed at older audience, like I've said before, will be on Hulu. Now, what does this mean? What does it ultimately mean when it comes to monopolies? It means that all these other streaming services are going to have to either coordinate together, like cable, or come up with their own streaming service, more original content. Because here's the thing. The reason why Netflix is falling behind is not only because of the political, but also because of the fact that they do treat their customers bad. It's like there's nothing new. They've hit their peak. There's nothing new so far as streaming services that they can go on their technology wise. They just stream it and that's it. You know, maybe be able to have better high quality picture or faster streaming, faster buffering, that kind of thing, and maybe services more areas. But it seems at this point all they're focusing on is gathering intellectual property in order to stream it. And that's where it's going to be a lot more harder to do. See, that's where this intellectual property and monopoly comes in. All these studios can basically either have the rights or buy the rights to stream these services and stream these shows. Now, the way to combat this would be if, like, for example, I wanted to watch MASH. That's an older show. Nobody's producing any new episodes for that unless they decide to do a reboot on it, which I highly doubt that they're going to do that. It's an old show. Most people don't even watch it. Well, my age group doesn't, but I love it. Now, say for example, let's say Hulu wanted to, like, and they do. Let's say Hulu and Netflix wants to stream that show. They should be able to do it because they're no longer producing new shows, new episodes for that. It's been years since they produced it. The show is canceled. It's in syndication basically with all these different networks on cable. So they should be able to do shows like that. And as far as like original content goes, some of this stuff on Netflix isn't technically original content. They're basically just streaming shows that are from other countries into the United States. You see it all the time, especially with Bollywood movies, Korean soap operas, whatever happened to be popular at the time, and British shows that they happen to get lucky in order to get the rights to stream it here, versus being lucky and be able to stream streaming services shows. Because the example would be how Netflix has the right to stream the Titan shows, which is on DC Universe here in the United States, another streaming service, but they don't have that right to stream or the ability to stream in other countries, but Netflix does. So they have a deal with Netflix to stream that show over there. So that's the way to combat exclusivity, is to coordinate with other streaming services. But not just that, but also to get older intellectual property in order to still do it. Because here's the thing, with Disney Plus, we're talking 7,000 episodes and possibly hundreds of shows, not just Fox's Simpsons and Family Guy and similar products. We're also talking about older properties that are kind of like maybe nobody likes, maybe like okay, or stuff that everybody likes. Now, these are shows that are canceled, like Firefly, for example. That's just so it was canceled. A lot of fans got mad when that got canceled, but they can still stream it. So they could probably share that across different boards. And that's the thing. Netflix and Hulu the long story short, the problem is about intellectual property and what's original. Now, the stuff that's older, I can understand they can be able to share, like MASH, Scrubs, older shows that are no longer having new ideas put into them. They've been canceled for a long time, so it's understandable that they could share those kinds of shows between Disney, Hulu, Netflix, all that. But original content, that's what's going to make or break this game. Because why would you pick one service? Just if they all have the same stuff that you like, then you're going to have to pick and choose what stuff you like, which is what's interesting. Now, Disney has all this intellectual property with Marvel, Star Wars, Lucasfilms, all that stuff. So they have a lineup that to where there's millions of fans who love this type of stuff, they're gonna go watch it. Netflix, a little bit more complicated. They rely on other people. They are talking about adding original content. Now, some of their shows, though, they're not living up to their expectations. So you got Dragon Prince, which is basically social warrior and justice, not propaganda. You have the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is not a family-friendly show. Do not let your little ones watch that show. And then you also have then the fact of it is that a lot of their stuff is just political, and that's what's going to make it break it. It's politics and having it being shoved down your throat. And that's why I've talked to a lot of people, and they say that's why I'm quitting Netflix, because the stuff that they have that's original isn't good. And I could only think of one or two shows that I like that's original versus movies that I could go to a library and rent. Because they're still going to produce DVDs, and that's the thing. Netflix is still going to put their shows on DVD even after they have a streaming service. You can get Stranger Things, you can get Voltron, the animated show, and while it may take a couple of years for them to get on DVD, it's still going to be available. I mean, even Stars, they have their own streaming service, yet they still put shows like American Gods, HBO's got Game of Thrones, they supposed to put their stuff on DVD. Same thing with Netflix. You think they're going to stop putting Snow White or Lion King on DVD? No, they're going to still have stuff that you can only view on DVD, like documentaries, features, stuff like that. And eventually, in the long run, that kind of stuff will be obsolete, but that's the thing. Long run. Short run, this is what short run, Netflix is going to die out because all these different studios have experience reaching a wider audience. Netflix is becoming too political and becoming too expensive for what they're offering. If it's just exclusive stuff they're doing, that's it. Then there's nothing, then you have to pay. So if I'm paying $8, $12, $15 a month just to watch something that I could get on DVD, at my local library or even from Redbox, or if they're streaming something that I already watch on Hulu or Disney Plus, then why go there? So that's what it means for the future of streaming itself. This is what it means. And also, the thing that we got to remember is that it's also creating new content. That's not the bad part. That's the bad side to exclusive content. Now think about also the good side. You're gonna have more actors. You're gonna have more stories. You're gonna have great interaction with. It's still because Loki on it. There's all these different stuff. You got Marvel properties, which includes Loki, Howard the Duck. You got Star Wars with the Mandalorian and the Rebels and all that. And then of course you have shows like the Muppets, which is actually being produced by Josh Gad from It's a Snowman. Little Olaf is actually producing his own show with Disney Plus. On top of that, Hulu is still going to have all of the favorite shows. I mean, they're getting more and more stuff that we love and stuff that we grew up with. They're still getting stuff, even stuff that's newer. I mean, I rented Overboard, which is a movie that came out earlier this year, at the local library, and it showed up on Hulu. So they're moving stuff faster. So that's all the time I got right now, guys. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And also, I go to my Patreon as well as to my co-hosts on the 50 Shades of Red podcast. Y'all have a good day.